You'll probably spend more time reading and replying to emails than sending brand new ones. In this video, I'll show you how to respond to emails within Gmail, work within Conversation View, and use Gmail's new snooze feature. I'll start here in my inbox. When I hover over an individual message or thread, a collection of buttons will appear and give me quick access to some of the most common actions that I might want to take with the message, including archiving, deleting, marking as read, and snoozing. Once I've clicked on a message, I'll see the email in this view since I'm not currently using one of the split pane views. Before we go on, I also want to show you how this will look in the other two views. First, I'll go back to my inbox and turn on the vertical split. When I select the message again, it'll look like this. Let's also take a look at the horizontal split option. When I select the message again, you'll see that it appears at the bottom of the screen. For now, I'll go back to the original view without any splits and select my conversation thread again. When you have a single message or conversation thread open, the action buttons in the row at the top of the screen will give you some options for what you can do with that message or thread. Using these buttons, you can archive the message or thread, which removes it from your inbox and places it in the all mail section. Report the thread or message as spam. Delete the message or thread, which removes it from your inbox and puts it in the trash area. I recommend only doing this for messages or threads that you never want to see again. It's almost always best to use the archive option instead, especially since you have unlimited storage space in Gmail. You can also mark a message or a thread as unread. You can snooze the message or thread, which we'll talk about in greater detail later in this video. You can move the message or thread to a different section of your email account. You can apply one or more labels to the message or thread. And finally, you can click on the three dots at the end of the row of buttons to see even more actions that you can take on the email conversation. At the top of each individual email message, you can click on the drop-down arrow to see the full details about the recipients. For example, this is where you can see the difference between which recipients were included in the to field and which ones were CC'd on the message. If you were the original sender of the message, as I was on this example, you can also see which recipients you chose to BCC or blind copy on the message. At the bottom of each message, you'll see whether or not any attachments were included. When you click on an attachment in Gmail, you can preview and scroll through it directly in your web browser without needing to actually download it. This is great for times when you might need to just take a quick glance at a document that was sent to you. After you finish previewing the document, simply click anywhere outside of it and return back to the message in Gmail. When you hover over the thumbnail image of the attachment, you'll be given the options to download the file to your computer or save it to Google Drive. In the upper right corner of the conversation thread, Gmail gives you some options to pop the thread out to a new window or print the thread. If you want to print all of the email messages that are included in a thread, this is the button that you'll need to use. However, if you only want to print out a single message, you can find this option in the drop-down menu in the upper right corner of each individual message. At the bottom of the email thread, you'll see the buttons that will let you take some common actions: reply, reply all, and forward. Depending on the content of your message, Gmail might also suggest some quick reply buttons that you can use to easily send out a response. I'm going to respond to everyone on the thread with the "You're welcome" button, and then I'll click the send button. Notice that after I've sent my message, it gets added on as the most recent message at the bottom of the conversation thread. Whenever the subject line remains the same as that of the original message, Gmail will automatically thread these messages together into what's called Conversation View. If you have a lot of messages in a conversation and need to make it easier to scroll through them, the button with arrows in the upper right corner will allow you to quickly collapse or expand all of the messages within a thread at once. Conversation view is a great feature to have because Gmail will group messages with the same subject line together into a single thread, so this won't clog up the number of messages that you see listed in your inbox. However, if someone changes the topic of discussion without also changing the subject line of the email, this might get confusing. For example, you can see that the topic of this particular conversation is our weekly report. If I were to respond to this same thread with the same subject line, but change the topic of discussion to something completely different, such as lunch, that message would get added into the same email conversation, but still stay under the subject heading about the weekly report. So instead, what I'll do is click the drop-down arrow in the upper left corner of the reply area and select the Edit Subject option. The earlier email history is still there, but I can change my subject line to something that matches the new topic I'm discussing in the message. After I've sent the message, notice that it does not appear at the bottom of the original conversation thread like before. When I go into my All Mail area, you can see how Gmail has split this into its own new discussion thread. If you prefer to disable conversations, you can do this within the Gmail settings. Let's open the settings page. Scroll down to the conversation view section. Select this option to turn conversation view off, and then scroll down to the very bottom to save changes. After you've saved your changes and your email has refreshed, you can see that Gmail has split the conversations into individual emails. Everything is now unthreaded, including any new messages that might come into the inbox. For now, I'll go ahead and turn Conversation View back on, since it's the preferred way of keeping track of your messages when you're using Gmail. Finally, let's take a look at snoozing, which is one of the new features in Gmail. It allows you to temporarily remove emails from your inbox until you need them to appear again at some point in the future. For example, you might choose to use this feature on an email thread about a project that you're not planning on working on until a later day or time, so you might not want any new emails in that conversation thread to keep showing up in your inbox in the meantime. It's important to note that the snooze feature in Gmail is only available when you have Conversation View turned on. You can snooze a conversation thread from either the list of emails, as you can see here, or once you have an individual thread open. Clicking on the snooze button lets you specify when you would like this thread to appear in your inbox again, including the option to choose an exact day and time. For now, I'll select the option to snooze this conversation thread until later today. You can find a full list of all the conversation threads that you've snoozed by clicking on the snooze link in the left side menu. The time or day that's written on each line in red will show you when the thread is currently scheduled to be unsnoozed. You can click on the snooze icon again, and then you can either extend the snooze time even further or select the option at the bottom to unsnooze the conversation. Unsnoozing a conversation will return it to where it was previously located within your email account. And in this case, since this conversation thread about the weekly report was in the inbox, that is now where it's located again now that I have unsnoozed it.